So this is going to be my last video for 2018 and following on from last week's post, which is titled 12 Things That Made Me Go Aha in 2018. And what I wanted to do with this is just give you a run through, if you haven't read my post yet, of the 12 things that I learned that stood out to me the most this year. So what I've been doing for the last couple of years is at the start of every week when I'm going through everything that I accomplished in the week before, and I'm strategizing what I want to get done and what needs to be accomplished over the next 7 days. I also reflect on anything of note that I learnt in the previous week, because as long as we're living and breathing and conscious, we're always learning new things. But what can really save us in the long term, what can really save us from making the same mistake twice or 3 times or even more times than that over and over, is if we remember the things that we learnt along the way and reflect on them. So for about 2 years now, what I've been doing at the end of every week is I've been making a note of any key lessons that I learned, anything that really stood out to me. And then I copy and paste it into a Word document, and I'll have every month of the year listed out, and I'll just copy and paste it under whatever month it fell in, and then I can go back and I can look at it later on. So what I wanted to do with my last post for the year before the Christmas New Year break was just to go through the one thing every month that stood out above all else. Because this is going to help you in the next year to come. There might be something there that really stands out to you. And I don't see the point in learning these lessons in life if we can't share them with people. So, excuse me, first of all, for January, the thing that I had entered was that there are circumstances beyond my control, granted. But aside from that, if I focus first on my own attitude and output, push emotions to one side and face each day with stoicism and a get it done attitude, then this year will make itself great. Now this was something that occurred to me on New Year's Day. I was walking along the beach, walking along the rocks, and as generally happens, I was just thinking like, I wonder what this next year is going to be like for me. I wonder what it holds in store for me. And then I realized that it's a passive way to be looking at your future. It's kind of like when you're a kid and your parents tell you that they're taking you out on an excursion and you don't know where you're going. It's like that, except that as adults now we're the ones in charge. And I realized that instead of wondering, is this going to be a good year for me, that I should just worry about doing whatever I needed to do in each given day, keep setting targets and doing everything that I could, doing whatever it took to meet and exceed those targets, and the year would take care of itself. So yeah, and I saw a post a day or two later from another guy saying much the same thing. And it just reaffirmed this revelation that I had, that instead of worrying about what the next 12 months has in store for us, we should just focus first and foremost on doing the best that we can every day, every week. And if we do that for over 52 weeks, the year's going to take care of itself anyway. And it will be a great year without you focusing on, oh, is this going to be a good year for me? So that was January. February was just simply push your feelings aside and just do it. Now, if you work in a creative field, then you'll know what I'm talking about. There are times where you have to produce something for a client, or maybe it could be as part of a collaborative effort, and you don't feel that creative energy. And the temptation can be not to bother doing it until you're at your peak, because you want to put stuff out there that's perfect. There's pride involved, understandably, but the fact is that there's still deadlines that you need to meet. And so what I wanted to do this year was not to worry about how I felt, because feelings can be quite unreliable. If you think back to the way that you've felt about different situations at a given time, and whether they were, whether they ended up being accurate. How many times do your feelings end up being inaccurate? So what I wanted to do was to focus first and foremost on just getting it done. And then at least I could turn around at the end and say, you know what? I at least got it done, and maybe if I've got the time to go back and improve it, I have the time to go back and improve it. But at least that's another task, another project. That's something that's done, and I wasn't just worrying about, oh well, when I feel right, I'll go and do it. So then into March, and the one key lesson from March that stood out to me was, we can choose the bottle of wine. It intoxicates us, but leads us nowhere, and leaves us thirsty and with a headache. Or we can choose the bucket that contains the water of life. Much more subtle, and it has no intoxicating effect, but it gives us what we need, and ultimately it satisfies us. And I wrote an article about this about a month or two ago, It's titled What Paul Kelly Teaches Us About Success, and you can go through and take a look through my blog and find it for yourself. But in that article, what I really got down to was that things of real value rarely come easily, and that, you know, doing what's difficult or what's dull, it might not feel so good to be doing it compared to doing what's more easy and more pleasurable, but it's more constructive in the long term. And at the risk of perhaps sounding like your parents, you just got to eat your veggies. And, you know, I mean, going to the gym isn't always, I'm not always psyched to be going to the gym, but I just go because I know that in 6 months' time, all those times when I went to the gym when I didn't necessarily feel like it, they're going to show itself. If you're learning a language, maybe sometimes you don't feel like doing the half an hour or the hour's revision that you do, but, you know, again, 6 months down the track, a year down the track, you're going to notice the difference, aren't you? So it's really choosing the water over the wine. It's really choosing what might seem kind of dull and boring, but is actually good for you, over what's just going to be wallowing out into pleasure or wallowing out into what's easier and then paying the price for it later on. Then into April, and quite simply the one that stood out to me the most for April was we accept the love we think we deserve. And this is something I had heard before, but it hadn't really registered with me until then. And this doesn't just reflect itself in your relationships, you know, your romantic relationships perhaps, but also in your friendships and in your dealings, in your dealings with clients and with customers. What do you actually think you deserve? Because that's going to reflect itself in the people that come into your life. If you don't think that you deserve to be treated with respect, you're going to tolerate people not treating you with respect. If you don't think you deserve to be well paid, you're going to settle for any old job. And then you end up resenting the people in your life, and you end up resenting yourself as well. So what's it going to be? Because I know for myself that I want to keep aiming up, and I want to go for the best. And if that means I have to miss out on a few things in the meantime, so be it. I've only got one life, and I don't want to be bitter about. I don't want to be bitter about dealing with people or dealing with clients where I'm not getting that respect. I'm not getting what I think I deserve. And at the same time, I realise that I can't be entitled about it. I can't have a sense of entitlement that I've got to hold up my end of the bargain. But as long as I hold up my end of the bargain, and as long as I'm giving my all and I'm continuously learning, then it's a two-way street, and it'll be more reciprocal. The relationship's going to be more reciprocal. Other people will be happier, and I'll be happier and more content. And that's the most important thing. So on to May, and I said, in order to be a leader, live as if you already are one, and setting an example. Because on a long enough time frame, there's going to be people in your life that come to you for direction, come to you for guidance, and especially if you dream of leading people one day, whether it's as a coach, as a teacher, or anything like that. It's pointless to be waiting around for that moment when you become that person. Why not just start to become that person now? Start living now as if you were already that person. What attitudes do you have to adopt? What do you have to start doing differently? What do you need to learn? But it could never be too soon. So why not start doing it now and become that person that's actually going to be somebody that other people want to follow, other people are going to seek the advice and the counsel of, and it will come much easier instead of just waiting for this distant, far off time when it just suddenly all comes together. Then on to June, and what I put for June was we learn to fight and win the smaller battles in order to conquer larger battles later on in life, and to show others how to win them. So, yeah, this is like martial arts training. If you want to get to a higher belt, you want to become a better fighter, you've got to master the small things first. And in the same way in your business, there's going to be smaller things that you have to deal with in the startup stage or in those first few years that you aren't really going to have to worry about later on in time. But in order to get to that stage, in order to get to that higher up level in your business or even in your personal life, there are smaller things that need your attention. There are smaller things that you have to work on and to master. And the beauty is that once you've done that, then you can show other people how to beat it. But you can't reach the top of the mountain without first getting to certain summits in your life. And yeah, look, there's going to be small things that come up, and you can't always predict exactly what's going to happen to you, but you just got to be prepared. You just got to master those smaller tasks and deal with those smaller challenges that come at you. And you know, on the other side of those are going to be bigger tasks and more responsibilities and more privileges as well with that. It's all really that learning curve. So You got to fight those smaller battles. You got to win those smaller battles, and then those larger battles will come later on, and the bigger glory that's attached when you get on the other side of that. For July, I said meditation is a small thing that causes subtle yet notable changes to our well-being and our state of mind. And again, this is really like working out. I don't know if you're somebody who meditates on the regular, but I've been doing it for the last couple of years, and it's subtle changes that I notice just in how I go about my day, in my sense of well-being. But if you're not doing it on the regular, I definitely advise that you take a look and see what works for you. I mean, people have got all different methods of doing it, but if you talk to so many people who've been in business for decades, people who are really successful, they have some form of meditation they do on the regular. And in the same way that going to the gym or exercising is working out your body, meditation is working out your spirit, your subconscious, those things that aren't immediately noticeable. But if you're getting the work done on that level below the conscious, it starts to manifest in your conscious mind, not just subconscious, but in your conscious mind, and how that manifests into what you're doing and how people are interacting with you and the realizations that you have. That's the best way I can describe it. It's a subtle thing, but if you don't do it for a while, you notice its absence. And when you are doing it on the regular, you start to notice little positive changes. So if that's not something that you did in 2018, I definitely recommend that you start meditating on the regular in 2019. Find something that works for you and stick with it. On to August, and I said, expecting and preparing yourself mentally and physically for good things to come, even when they're not yet present in your life, it has great power for it to show up. So act and attract. Now, I wanted to distinguish that this isn't just think of it and then it will fall into your lap mantra. It's not that simple. This is more about being it until you become it. Not faking it till you make it, but about being what you want to be and becoming the sort of person that you would need to be in order to attract the great things that you want into your life. Adopting those attitudes, that mindset, and then subconsciously molding yourself into becoming that person. And this is what I was talking about a couple of months earlier with the leadership thing. You've got to prepare yourself now. You can't just wait for this stuff to show up. You've got to prepare yourself first of all. Any great task or any great feat needs preparation. And it's no different here. So act towards the outcomes that you seek, think towards those outcomes, prepare yourself, do the work, and you put yourself in a much better position for those things to actually show up in your life that you're working towards and that you dream of. On to September, and I said, when deciding on a course of action, all I need to remember is what I would do if I was somebody that I aspired to be. And this just really comes back to decision making, and sometimes we don't know what's the right decision to make. But what I started doing was I'd think, all right, I don't necessarily know what's going to come out of making this decision. But if I was to look back, say 5 years from now, 10 years from now, what would I be proud of doing? Well, if I could go back and I could say, look, I didn't know what the outcome was going to be, but I know that I made the best decision with what I had available, with the sources that I had available to me at the time, with the information that I had, with my intuition about it. What's the decision that I would be most proud of making? And that's what really directs you towards becoming somebody that you're actually proud of. Think about the people in your life that you aspire to, the people that you respect. And when you're in these situations where you don't know exactly how to act, it helps to think, all right, how would this person act? How would this person decide in this situation? Because if you do that, then it's more likely that you yourself are going to become somebody that you actually respect. Somebody you look at in the mirror and you say, you know what, I have my faults, I've made my poor decisions, but I do what I believe is best, and I'm truly making the decision that I'm proud of every time. Even if it doesn't always pay off, you can at least be proud of yourself. And that really fuels your own motivation, your own drive, boosts your self-confidence, and then all the other good things come from that too. So onto October, and what I wrote for October was that we step to a new level or find ourselves in a great situation we haven't experienced before, or when we do that, don't get flustered by the occasion and don't act based on excitement or nerves. Instead, keep calm, be steady and persistent, and keep doing as you have done up to this point in time, even though the setting or the situation may be a new one. but be prepared to keep on learning. A team that wins the grand final, they don't win the grand final through doing things differently or letting the occasion dictate how they play. A team wins the grand final with the same mindset and doing the same things that brought them there to begin with. So you think about people who've won the lottery and then blown all their money, or you think about the quiet, nerdy guy who actually gets the date with that beautiful girl who's got plenty of interest, and he doesn't hang on to it because he wasn't prepared for what was going to come to him. And this can happen with people. They get presented with a great opportunity, but they don't hang on to it because they weren't ready for it, because they panicked and it all felt new and strange to them, and they stopped doing the things that had got them that had got them through that door of opportunity in the first place. I think about this. I was playing a video game at a friend's place a while ago, and I got to this level that I hadn't reached before. And traditionally, if that happened, when I was a kid in that, I wouldn't say I panicked, but you'd start to get conscious about the fact that you were on a new level. And so you'd start doing uncharacteristic things that you weren't doing beforehand in the easier levels. And then it just came to me and I was like, why am I doing this differently? I should just be doing everything that got me to here in the first place. Just keep calm, just keep doing things as you'd be doing them, and keep learning. And so without any surprise whatsoever, I started doing better. And so it's the same with this. Like, you can't, when you find yourself in a new circumstances, new opportunities, you can't suddenly worry about, oh, look, I'm in this new situation, I'm in this great new circumstance, and throw it away. You've just got to keep you cool. You've got to back yourself, stay calm, and be prepared to learn. And that's your best chance at hanging on to this new opportunity that you get. Because as I said, if a team makes the grand final, it doesn't make any sense to them to start playing differently when they show up on the big day. Why would you go away from what has worked for you all season? It's just stupid. You stand the biggest risk of throwing away the game, throwing away that golden opportunity at glory, if you go, oh, look at this new environment, look, I'm in the grand final, and then everybody panics and they start making rash decisions based on emotion rather than just sticking to what has worked for them up to that point in time. It's exactly the same with new opportunities that come up to you in your personal life, new opportunities that come up to you in your professional life, or anywhere else. You just got to stick with what you already knew, what got you there in the first place, be open to learning, and that's how you're going to not just keep your foot in the door, but to walk right through that door and maybe find new doors further on down the track. So through to November, and I said, life's too short to waste it being a grouch or waiting for things to happen. Be positive, be present, and make it happen. So, like I said back in January, waiting to see what happens, it's the passive approach. And so is grumbling about what happens to you, because, look, problems come up for everybody. Challenges come up for everybody. There's curveballs, there's situations that come in and you can't foresee them. So are you going to grouch about it, or are you just going to appreciate each moment that you're in? Appreciate that moment and just do the best you can, and be positive about your future. As long as you're positive, as long as you work at getting yourself out of a situation, rather than just complaining about being in that situation, the better your chances are at getting out of that situation as soon as possible and moving on to new good things. And then to round out the year, December, I said, we control ourselves and set our own boundaries, or somebody else will control and set boundaries for us. It's our choice. And this comes back to self-discipline. It comes back to placing limits on yourself. Because if a person doesn't place limits on themselves in their life, then somebody else is going to do that for them. That's how the world works. So it really comes back to, do you want to make the self-sacrifice here, here, and here in order to be your own man or woman? Or are you just going to do whatever you feel like and then reach a point where you have somebody else calling the shots for you? And you might not necessarily like or agree with all the shots being called for you. So what's better? Is it better to limit yourself so that you can aspire to a life where you're the one that's in charge? Or would you rather just not discipline yourself and find yourself in a situation where somebody else is making the decisions for you? Because I know that the former, I know that self-sacrifice, self-discipline, that is how you bring great new opportunities into your life, and you are in the driver's seat. So whatever happens for you in the next 12 months, why not decide that you're going to be the one that's in control? Why not take charge? And if you want to go back over these 12 lessons that I've shared with you, you can click on the article link down below as always. But see how you go. I don't know if anything stood out to you, but let me know if there was one of those 12 that really gave you an aha moment. But I'm going to wrap this up now, guys. So I don't know what you're doing over the Christmas break, the New Year break, but if you're going away, stay safe. And don't just make some New Year's resolution that fades away into the second week of January. I encourage you to sit down, set goals, maybe for every 3 months, maybe for every month, on your way to making 2019 a great year for you. And take on board anything that you've learned throughout the year so that you can come back later on and reflect on it as I've just done now. And I hope this video has helped you, and let me know how you go, guys. Otherwise, that's it from me for the year. Merry Christmas to you all. Happy New Year. And until 2019, take care. I will catch you later.